You were relentless. You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead. I hope you die in prison as well.
I will break out soon, and I will kill more.
The court doesn't allow me to punish you any more than I'm doing now. If I could, I would.
I'm the victim. Liar. Liar. Liar.
And you're gonna shut your mouth or I'm gonna have some duct tape put on it.
I should have killed you. I should have killed you. Everybody goes through a lot.
This is TJ Lane. The 18-year-old is in court today for sentencing after pleading guilty to murdering 3 high school students and injuring 3 more at Chardon High School in Ohio. Lane was a former Chardon student, but had been transferred to Lake Academy Alternative School due to behavioral issues.
At Chardon High School, we had shots fired, gunshots, multiple gunshots.
On the morning of the attack, he armed himself with his uncle's .22 caliber pistol, along with a knife, before opening fire in the cafeteria at Chardon High School, killing Daniel Parmator, Demetrius Hewlin, and Russell King Jr. Also injured in the shooting were Nicholas Walczak, Nate Mueller, and Joy Rickers. Lane's disrespect and lack of remorse is clear as soon as he enters the courtroom, unbuttoning his shirt to reveal a t-shirt scrawled with the word killer. He sits smugly beside his defense attorney, smirking as family members of his victims give their impact statements.
You will never, ever be in my thoughts after this. Never. My family will move on, not you. You have ruined your life, not to mention Adam's. You're evil.
I want him to suffer the rest of his life the way I will suffer the rest of my life without Danny.
You're really lucky there's so many police in this room right now. You could smile all you want.
The mother of victim Holly Walczak responds to Lane's disrespect with some strong words, but he remains impassive in his seat. The judge offers Lane the opportunity to make a statement to the court. Sensing that his client is about to throw more fuel on the fire with his merciless disposition, his attorney tries to talk him out of speaking, but the ruthless killer is not deterred. You won't believe what happens next.
Saying to pull the trigger to kill your son, now masturbates to memory. Love you.
Watch as Lane turns toward the families of his victims, making an utterly repulsive statement as he gives them the finger. Here it is again, in case you missed it.
Saying to pull the trigger to kill your son, now masturbates to memory. Love you.
Gasps can be heard in the courtroom as spectators are stunned by the vulgarity of what Lane has just said. And even his own attorney looks visibly shaken.
The judge sentenced Lane to life in prison without parole. He was not eligible for the death penalty because he was a minor at the time of the shootings.
As Lane was just 17 when the crimes were committed, he is not eligible for the death penalty. But Judge David Fury sentences him to life in prison without parole, ensuring that this ruthless killer never has the chance to harm another innocent person again. Lane's heinous crimes and lack of remorse were particularly hard to fathom, because there was simply no motive or reason behind his actions.
I have not 1 ounce of remorse for Tresian's death.
But, as we see in the case of Randall Moore, sometimes a person's burning hatred for their victim is so strong that it strips them of any conscience. Moore is awaiting sentencing at 5th Judicial District Court in Des Moines, Iowa. At an earlier hearing, he was convicted of the first-degree kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder of his estranged wife, Therese Ann Lynch, who had a protective order in place against him at the time of her death. Moore was also found guilty of attempted murder for shooting a police officer. The incident unfolded when Moore forced Lynch into a rented car in a shopping mall car lot and drove her to their apartment before assaulting and shooting her.
He has 20 shells. He wants no one to come to the door.
He also shot Officer Todd Rowland, who was responding to the incident.
Okay, 303 Adams been hit, officer down.
A hostage standoff ensued, and it was a number of hours before law enforcement managed to enter the apartment and arrest Moore. The killer sat impassively throughout his 2-week trial, showing little emotion, even as the verdict was read out. Today's sentencing hearing starts in the same vein, with Moore sitting emotionless as Therese Ann's broken-hearted mother reads out her impact statement.
What you did to my daughter, Therese Ann Marie Lynch, was evil, hateful, and despicable. You are now dead and rotting and repulsive to me.
However, something in her scathing criticism hits a nerve with Moore, and what happens next defies the boundaries of common decency. Moore looks irritated as he slaps a bundle of papers down on the table, before calmly telling Therese Ann's mother that her daughter hated her.
Read the journal she wrote. She hated you. You're a loser.
Despite being shushed and ordered to quieten down by courtroom officials, Moore continues his heartless tirade to Teresa Ann's grieving mother.
I have not 1 ounce of remorse for Teresa Ann's death.
His parting words are particularly cruel, and even Judge Joel Novak is visibly shocked.
If anybody didn't know what a piece of work you were before you start talking, they know it now. I've never, ever seen anybody like you.
The judge doesn't hold back as he begins his sentencing remarks to Moore, who is unrepentant of his outburst.
I hope, really, I never ever see anybody like you again. The court doesn't allow me to punish you any more than I'm doing now. If I could, I would.
The killer even goes as far as to shake his head in response to some of Judge Novak's comments.
Yeah, shake your head, yeah, because you know you do. And I just can't believe what I've heard.
But the judge continues on unfazed. Moore is eventually sentenced to 3 life sentences for his crimes against Teresa Ann, along with an additional 25-year sentence for shooting Officer Todd Rowland. Impact statements are designed to offer victims and their loved ones an opportunity to address the perpetrator of the crime, giving them some form of closure. However, for Moore, it was just another chance to twist the knife on Teresa Ann's family. And in the case of Donta Wright, we see a similar affair, with the killer using the impact statement process to show the highest form of disrespect for his victim's family. Wright is in court for sentencing for the murder of 18-year-old Jordan Klee. Klee, who was a promising athlete, was shot dead during a robbery at Pine Lake Village Apartments in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Earlier, Wright had accepted a plea deal, admitting to armed robbery, conspiracy to commit armed robbery, felony firearm, and second-degree murder.
How do you want to plead to counts 2, 3, 6, and 7?
I'm pleading guilty.
What did you do with that gun in Mr. Jordan Klee?
Shot him.
And where did you shoot him?
The top of his head.
And did you kill him with that shot?
Yes.
As part of the deal, additional robbery charges and charges related to another murder were dropped, saving Wright the risk of a lengthier sentence that he may have gotten had he gone to trial. Throughout his court appearances, Wright's demeanor has been carefree to say the least, and he has stood extremely relaxed and almost cheerful at times, even as the lengthy term attached to his plea deal was announced.
The defendant will serve 23 to 50 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. Those 3 counts will run concurrent to each other.
However, at the sentencing hearing today, he takes his callousness to a new level.
This year was supposed to be a year of celebration, of senior pictures with prom and graduation and parties. Instead, it was a nightmare that no parent should ever endure.
Jordan's sister begins to address the court as his mother weeps openly behind her. However, instead of being remorseful, Wright shows an unbelievable lack of respect by smiling through the statement. If you think that's bad, just watch what happens next when the judge gives Wright the opportunity to speak.
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon. I love my family.
In an incredibly tone-deaf declaration, Wright speaks to the court as if he's accepting an award, smiling as he tells them he'll be home soon. Here it is again in case you missed it.
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon. I love my family.
Wright's comments are about to land him in hot water, though, as Judge David Swartz is incensed by the defendant's shocking lack of respect and remorse, and he halts the proceedings to ask the prosecution to cancel the plea deal and take the case to trial.
Watching you sit there, smile, and laugh, and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial, and if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there.
However, after an hour of consultation with the Klee family, the prosecution decides to go ahead with the deal, meaning he will spend 23 to 50 years in prison for his crimes. Donta Wright isn't the only killer to draw the wrath of the judge with a total disregard for common decency and humanity. In fact, in the case of Camia Gamet, the judge grows so tired of her continued interruptions and insolence that he makes a highly unusual threat. Gamet is appearing before Judge John McBain for sentencing after being found guilty of the murder of her disabled boyfriend, Marcel Hill. 31-year-old Gamet has a violent nature, and there was a history of domestic violence against Hill, who suffered from mental illness and cognitive impairment. In 2012, this abuse culminated in his murder, when in a fit of rage, Gamet stabbed Hill 11 times in their Mississippi home, cutting his torso open with a knife. Gamet refuses to take accountability for the crime, claiming that she was attacked with a lamp in the dark by an unknown assailant and responded in self-defense. She alleges that it was only when she turned the light on after stabbing her attacker that she realized that it was, in fact, her boyfriend Hill.
I also remember the cries of help that he screamed as you plunged that knife in and out of his body.
Her hearing today begins with Hill's aunt giving an impact statement to the court about the ongoing trauma that his death has caused. However, Gamet takes issue with the content of the statement and can be seen rolling her eyes and snickering throughout. Growing more incensed by her lack of respect and repeated interruptions, Judge McBain finally snaps and issues a threat to Gamet.
And you're gonna shut your mouth or I'm gonna have some duct tape put on it.
Unfortunately, no duct tape can be found, and when it comes to Gamet's turn to address the court, her lack of insight is astounding, and you won't believe how the judge responds.
We'll wait here for a moment so we can get her quiet.
Basically, at trial, the way I was portrayed, mostly everything was lies. There was a little bit of truth, but mostly I was convicted off of lies.
Thankfully, Judge McBain isn't having any of it, and he explodes, reproaching Gamet for the callous and calculated nature of the murder.
You were relentless. You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead. I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
Gamet is ultimately sentenced to life in prison, and she continues to sneer and roll her eyes as she is led from the court to face her punishment. She later appeals the sentence, claiming that the judge failed to remain impartial, but she is denied, and her conviction for first-degree murder stands. Gamet's hostile attitude and lack of accountability are hard to fathom, but sometimes the behavior of the defendants in the courtroom is so bizarre that it is truly baffling. One such person is Luis Bracamontes.
I will break out soon, and I will kill more.
An illegal immigrant from Mexico who is accused of killing 2 Sacramento police officers. The killings happened following a day-long crime spree that began in a motel parking lot, where Bracamontes shot and killed Sheriff's Deputy Danny Oliver. He then took police on an extended chase through multiple counties with his girlfriend in tow, repeatedly carjacking a series of vehicles. The chase ended in Auburn, but not before Bracamontes engaged police in a shootout, killing Placer County Deputy Michael Davis Jr. Bracamontes' contempt for authority is evident from his shocking crimes, but he continues to stun onlookers with his behavior in the courtroom, laughing and giggling throughout his trial as the prosecutors detail the horrific double murder he committed.
But now in this tiny street on Auburn, we have an AR-15 and another big heavy military gun firing at each other. Bullets are going everywhere. This is a haywire scene and Mike's not moving. And he flips him over and it's nothing but blood.
Due to Bracamontes' repeated outbursts, Judge Steve White has to clear the court a number of times. And the defendant shows the true depths of his cold-blooded nature as he makes this chilling threat.
I will break out soon, and I will kill more.
His behavior up to now has been heartless to the point of inhuman, and it's about to get a whole lot worse as the verdict is read out.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is that your true and correct verdict? So say you all. Yes. So say they all.
Watch as Bracamontes listens nonchalantly as he is found guilty, laughing and untroubled as he drinks water and rocks in his chair. He looks toward the jury foreperson, giggling and mouthing something incomprehensible as she continues to read the verdict. He then looks toward his defense attorney, still smiling, leaning back in his chair like a man without a care in the world. It seems like Bracamontes can't contain his glee as the jury concludes the reading of the verdict and exits the courtroom.
Thank you all. I want you to step out now before anybody else leaves the courtroom, all the jurors.
After such a display of blithe insensitivity, it's unsurprising that Bracamontes' heedless attitude continues into his sentencing hearing. As he is handed a death sentence, Bracamontes looks directly at the mother of his victim, Officer Danny Oliver, and claps. As the proceedings come to an end, he shakes the hand of his defense team like a man doing nothing more important than ending a business meeting, and he is led away to death row, still smiling. Bracamontes' baffling antics caused a huge stir in court as jurors and spectators struggled to understand his behavior. But in the case of Ronnie O'Neill, his shocking and cold-hearted conduct had a definite ulterior motive.
I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
O'Neill is on trial for the murders of his girlfriend and daughter, and for the attempted murder of his son. Police say that he beat 33-year-old Kenyatta Barron to death before killing their 9-year-old disabled daughter with a hatchet. He also stabbed his 8-year-old son before attempting to set their Riverview home alight. In a tragic twist, it later emerged that he had only been staying at the house because family and friends wouldn't take him in after he was shot in a drive-by shooting, and after initially refusing to let him stay, Kenyatta eventually relented. Surprisingly, O'Neal decides to represent himself in court, and it's clear from the outset of the trial that he has no remorse for what he's done.
I did kill Kenyatta Barron. If you think I'm here to play around with y'all, God damn it, I'm not.
O'Neal screams at the jury throughout the trial, claiming that he was set up by police, and even going so far as to allege that officers fabricated recordings of the 911 call.
Because he's playing a fraudulent damn recording of me beating Kenyatta Barron 15 damn times when that did not happen.
However, the most appalling display of ruthless cruelty comes from O'Neal when he interrogates his son, who he is alleged to have stabbed during the attack.
How you doing?
Good.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
O'Neal tries to engage him in some reminiscing on the activities they used to do together in an attempt to manipulate both the boy and the court.
Do you remember doing things with me? Going to family events and things like that?
Objection relevant.
Did I hurt you that night of this incident?
Yes.
I did. And how did I hurt you?
You stabbed me.
O'Neal is eventually found guilty on all counts, but the jury opts against the death penalty. At sentencing, O'Neal maintains his remorseless facade, shaking his head and raising his eyebrows as the impassioned impact statements are read aloud. But his behavior goes from cold to downright cruel as he makes his own address to the court. Incredibly, O'Neal openly admits his lack of sorrow.
I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
Judge Michelle Cisco has this to say to O'Neal about his manipulative character.
There's a part of you that can be very charming and very likable. And with all due deference to your counsel, they're all excellent lawyers, excellent lawyers. But I have to tell you, I think that your representation of yourself also aided in saving you from the death penalty. I really do. I really think that.
She goes on to give an emotional evaluation of the case.
This is the worst case I have ever seen.
O'Neal is unremorseful and repeatedly interrupts Judge Cisco in an argumentative manner.
That was a death scream.
He continues to stand impassively, glancing around as she continues her highly charged address, even as she hands him a sentence of life imprisonment without parole.
I'm going to mete out the punishment that I think this case deserves. On count one, Mr. O'Neal, I will adjudicate you guilty, sentence you to life in prison with a minimum mandatory of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
O'Neal's crimes and subsequent conduct in court were shocking, but when it comes to ruthless killers, it is often the younger offenders that are the most chilling. One such person is Michael Swanson, a Minnesota teen who was accused of shooting dead 2 Iowa gas station attendants in the space of less than an hour. Police say that Swanson, who had recently been released from a juvenile detention center for theft, walked into the Crossroads gas station in Algona wearing a ski mask and demanding cash and cigarettes from the clerk, Vicki Bowman Hall. She complied with the request, but Swanson still shot her. An hour later, he entered a come-and-go store in Humboldt and killed Sheila Myers in a similar manner. He was just 17 years old at the time of the killings. Elements of Swanson's ruthless nature emerge in early interviews with police, where he makes callous admissions regarding the crimes.
Where did you shoot? On the body? Yeah. And in the face? In the face? Okay. Why the face? I thought I was just going to shoot to injure her. Why would I shoot her at all?
Swanson is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of burglary. His behavior in court is shocking as he sits smirking impassively throughout most of the proceedings, and you won't believe his reaction as the verdict is read out. Watch as Swanson's face breaks into a wide-open smile as he is found guilty of first-degree murder.
We find the defendant guilty of robbery in the first degree. Signed, foreperson. Have I accurately portrayed your verdict, sir? And do the rest of you agree with that representation? Very well.
He elicits a similar nonchalant reaction as he is found guilty of burglary. In the aftermath of the verdict, Swanson openly admits his guilt, describing how he shot Sheila Myers with a stunning lack of emotion.
I unintentionally, deliberately, and with premeditation shot the clerk, causing her to die. I did this with a specific intent to kill her.
At the sentencing hearing, Swanson sits, devoid of any emotion, as one of the victim's daughters expresses her devastation at her mother's death.
How could you do what you did to my mom and my family? I want to know if you're even sorry. Are you sorry for what you did? My mom was not only completely 100% innocent, but she was also a defenseless woman when you came in with that gun.
Later, as the judge addresses the killer, describing him as cold-blooded, Swanson can't control his laughter.
Cold-blooded murder. Cold-blooded murder, young man. You are dangerous. You are unpredictable. Prison for the rest of your life.
He is given 2 life sentences. However, the story doesn't end there for the unforgiving murderer. A few years after his conviction, Swanson proves that rehabilitation isn't a priority for him, as he slits the throat of a fellow inmate at the Iowa Medical and Classification Center in Coralville. This attack earns him an additional 25 years in prison on top of his life sentences. Swanson's extreme lack of empathy was conveyed clearly through his body language and actions. But for other criminals like Jeremy Christian, their mouth is their biggest vehicle for self-expression.
I'm the victim. You're on video macing me. Liar. Liar. Liar.
Christian is a white supremacist and self-professed Nazi whose beliefs are so radical that even some alt-right followers have refused to associate with him. However, in May 2017, he turned his words into action when he launched a volley of racist hate speech at 2 teenage girls on a train in Portland, Oregon. This footage shows how 3 fellow passengers intervened, forming a barrier between the girls and Christian. Christian responded by slashing their throats, killing 2 and wounding the 3rd. He was charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 3 misdemeanors. Christian's total lack of remorse is clear from the moment he is arraigned, when he is led into the court shouting about free speech.
Free speech or die, Portland. You got no safe place. This is America. Get out if you don't like free speech.
Before the end of the hearing, he takes another opportunity to express his hateful opinions, while crowds of spectators can be heard shouting in protest against him outside the courtroom.
Death to the enemies of America. Leave this country if you hate our freedom. You call it terrorism, I call it patriotism. You hear me? Die.
At another pretrial hearing, he verbally attacks one of the witnesses as she gives evidence, calling her a liar.
I'm the victim. You're on video macing me. Liar. 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 You're not the only black person on Max. Liar. Manufacturing hate crimes. You liar.
Extra security is needed to surround him during hearings due to his volatile and ruthless nature, and officers are quick to step in when he starts to get out of hand.
Manufacturing hate crimes since 2017. Yeah, keep working weird.
When the case eventually gets to trial, Christian continuously disrupts the proceedings, shaking his head and shouting as witnesses give evidence.
Laughing, shaking his head in apparent agreement, as he has done throughout most of this proceeding.
We just watched a video and she's lying.
Okay, it's clear.
Unsurprisingly, he's found guilty. Watch as he leans forward and laughs heartily once the verdict is read to the court.
The law does allow us to poll the jury to ensure that is a lawful verdict.
Demetria Hester, who had been assaulted by Christian the day before the murders, takes the stand to give her impact statement, but her strong words do not go down well with the double murderer, and he makes an outrageous remark in response.
You are a waste of breath, and when you die and go to hell, I hope you rot.
See you there.
Here it is again in case you missed it.
You are a waste of breath, and when you die and go to hell, I hope you rot.
See you there.
A slanging match ensues, quickly escalating into a full-blown shouting match.
Go back to Tennessee too. We don't want you here. All your race baiting bull. You ain't gonna be mayor either. You ain't gonna be mayor either.
As officers rush to take a restrained Christian out of the courtroom, he fires one last chilling threat at Hester.
I should have killed you. Everybody knows you're a liar. Everybody knows you're a liar, huh?
The sentencing eventually resumes the following day, with a seemingly calmer Christian appearing, this time remotely via video link. He gives a long statement to the court, describing his version of events on the day of the killings, summing up his lack of remorse in a nutshell with the following claim.
I do regret that 2 people died, but I do not regret my actions that led to their death.
While Christian took things to the extreme with his outbursts and wild antics, another killer, Scott Nelson, displayed extreme behavior at the opposite end of the scale, showing such a lack of emotion that the courtroom was left chilled to the core by his cold candor. 55-year-old Nelson is on trial in Orlando, Florida, for the murder of 56-year-old Jennifer Fulford. Police allege that Nelson kidnapped Fulford when he burglarized the house where she worked as a nanny, taking her along with her car and bank card. He made a number of unauthorized withdrawals from her bank account before stabbing Fulford to death and dumping her body in a nearby wooded area so that she couldn't be a witness to the crime. When arrested, he blamed the entire situation on a feud with his probation officer, who Nelson said created a situation that resulted in him being kicked out by his landlord and therefore forced to steal to get some money. The trial has been a dramatic one, with Nelson taking issue with witnesses and causing disruption on a number of occasions.
Mr. Nelson, are we clear that you're going to stop talking? I need a verbal affirmative.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson, talk with your attorneys, and then your attorneys. Mr. Nelson.
However, on day 4, proceedings take a shocking turn when Nelson takes the witness stand, leaving nobody in doubt about his ruthless nature.
Who killed Jennifer Fulford?
I did. Once you kick a dog enough times, they tend to bite back. And really, they just don't care anymore. I was hungry. I was starving to death on the streets of Winter Park. People don't give a damn about nobody in this world. They don't care.
His tone is totally flat as he talks about the plans and preparation he made in anticipation of the robbery.
You bought zip ties?
Yes, I did.
You bought duct tape?
That'd be correct.
You bought a knife?
I sure did.
You, at that point, formed a plan to use those items, but you knew that somebody was going to pay for how you've been treated.
That is very accurate.
Nelson's explanation of events is matter-of-fact to the point of cold-hearted.
Your plan was, you're going to force your way in.
No, the doorbell works better. Anybody can. You ring the doorbell. She opened the door and let me in.
And a stunned silence falls over the courtroom as he makes a remark in very poor taste.
Maybe she was cold.
Say that last line again.
I said maybe she was cold. I don't know.
On September 27th.
I don't know. She ended up cold.
He goes on to describe the rest of the attack in numbing detail.
Why did you bind her hands behind her back?
I would imagine so that she couldn't leave.
Why did you bind her feet with duct tape?
I imagine so she wouldn't walk away.
And why did you wrap her entire head in the duct tape?
Probably so she couldn't scream.
Despite his complete lack of remorse and the callous manner in which he recollected the killing, Nelson insists that he didn't intend to kill Fulford, but then goes on to make the most heinous comment.
I never intended to kill that woman. It was not in my heart to do that. It wasn't what I had planned. I didn't want to kill that woman. She'd never done anything to me.
Unsurprisingly, Nelson was found guilty, and in the penalty phase of the trial, his defense attorneys put him on the stand again, where he makes a shocking admission.
How has your mental health been affected by your previous incarceration?
I am a homicidal maniac.
He's eventually sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.